Just one hashtag, a call for a boycott, and what was once a symbol of America began to crumble. Over the past 2 years, thousands of restaurants across the United States have closed. McDonald's missed global sales targets for the first time. Starbucks lost millions of customers due to controversies related to politics. Red Lobster, once a source of pride for the working class, is now drowning in debt and could disappear completely. This is probably no longer about whether the food is good or bad. This is a battle between belief, values, and money, and it's reshaping the entire multi-billion-dollar US F&B industry. In the next few minutes, we'll delve into 15 brands that are free-falling, decoding how a hashtag can bring down a multi-billion-dollar empire, and why brands once etched in the memories of millions of Americans can disappear overnight. Let's start with the first name. There was a time when Pizza Hut didn't just sell pizza. They sell the feeling of a Friday night in America. It's a ritual, a moment, a part of the memory. But times change faster than a 300-degree oven, and Pizza Hut doesn't. In the past 18 months, over 400 Pizza Hut locations have closed across the United States. It's not because people don't like pizza anymore. Americans still eat pizza more than ever, but the way they eat is different. They no longer drive to the restaurant and wait 40 minutes for the staff to bring out a hot pie. They tapped a few times on their phones. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. That's dinner done. While Domino's built an empire on delivery speed and Papa John's turned the pizza experience into a tech race, Pizza Hut was still busy dusting off old tables. And in a world where speed is religion, anyone who is 10 minutes late is considered a decade behind. A 10-minute delay for a busy family means your child has to go to bed 10 minutes later, your wife is waiting 10 minutes to clear the table, and the sports game has already passed the first half. In that world, slowness is not a tradition, it's a disadvantage. Worse, Pizza Hut is stuck between two lines. It's not as cheap as fast food, nor as upscale as a fine dining restaurant. They want to be a place where families gather, but the new generation gathers around Netflix and home delivery. Result, the restaurant chain that was once a weekend destination is now a name that gets skipped over in the app list. A thought-provoking question: did Pizza Hut fail because they couldn't run faster, or because they wouldn't run? Perhaps it was their confidence in the past that led them to underestimate the future. Like a race car driver who still believes in the old car, while the competition has switched to electric vehicles. Perhaps their pizza is still good, but in a game where speed is more important than winning, flavor is no longer the decisive weapon, and Pizza Hut, once the king of pizza night, is now just a cold, stale slice of memory on a plate. Question for you: do you remember the last time the whole family sat down to eat pizza at the store? And if Pizza Hut disappeared forever, would you even notice, or would you simply order from a different app? If Pizza Hut is the driver waiting at the green light while everyone else is using self-driving cars, then Outback Steakhouse is the cowboy still riding a horse with a machete on the highway, and no one told them that. The highway had changed the rules. In less than 2 years, Outback has had to close over 50 stores across the United States. The cause sounds simple at first. Beef prices increased by over 30%, and profits were eroded bit by bit, like a steak cut too thin. But the deeper truth is, customers no longer live in an era where they sit down, order, wait 40 minutes, and pay $70 for a meal. They live in the age of click-to-doorstep delivery done in 20 minutes. Outback still tries to sell the traditional American steakhouse experience as if it were a privilege. But I'm sorry, for Gen Z or millennials, the privilege is not having to wear pants outside the house. They don't need burnt-edge beef jerky. They need speed, convenience, and sometimes a low-calorie salad to eat on their way to work. The problem is, Outback never thought it needed to change. The blooming onion, a legendary appetizer, once a symbol of pride, has now become a symbol of cholesterol in the 90s. The menu is still as heavy as a Texas truck, and the space is like a replica of a forgotten Western saloon from an old movie. And then one day, when the rent increased, employee salaries went up, and the price of raw materials rose. While the number of customers decreased, the picture became clear. It wasn't that the steak wasn't good anymore, but that everything around it was no longer suitable. A heavy steakhouse in a world of protein bowls and food delivery apps is like sending a handwritten letter in the email age. Romantic, but no one wants to wait. The question is, did Outback fail because they didn't know what people wanted, or because they believed people still wanted what they used to sell? Perhaps both. When you're too busy dwelling on the past, you won't see the future changing right before your eyes. Outback's beef might still be tender, still flavorful, and still quintessentially American. But in a world where people order meals with just a tap, perhaps that softness is no longer enough. And then one day, you'll drive past that old Outback Steakhouse sign and wonder, do I really miss this place? Or do I just miss the feeling of a bygone era? There was a time when every Friday at 5 p.m., millions of Americans would share the same mantra. Thank God it's Friday, and they all flocked to TGI Fridays as if it were a sacred ritual of the middle class. But then something strange happened. People still looked forward to Fridays, only they didn't go to Fridays anymore. Over the past 3 years, the chain has lost over 20% of its stores, with numerous branches being converted into space for gyms, pet stores, or, ironically, competitor restaurants. What was once a weekend destination is now a backup option if every place else is fully booked. The menu is still full of burgers, ribs, fries, and colorful cocktails, the things that once excited our father's generation. But now Gen Z looks at them with a, is there anything new? In an era where people count every calorie, share every meal on Instagram, and want everything to be meaningful, boasting about a 1,200 calorie dish and a cough syrup sweet cocktail is no longer appealing. The space at Fridays is also like a 90s sitcom, fun, but outdated and somewhat awkward. The old neon lights, the faded slogan signs, and the lively atmosphere are now just the noise from the TV broadcasting a game that no one is watching. If a restaurant can have a midlife crisis, Fridays is the prime example. The problem is, Fridays refuses to accept that the world has changed. They still believe people want to eat like it's 1998, while customers now want a chill space, a healthier menu, and an experience more memorable than a burger meal. And when you don't change, your customers will change you by going elsewhere. Did Fridays fail because we changed or because they thought we would always stay the same? Perhaps both. Friday still comes every week. It's just that no one feels the need to celebrate there anymore. So the next time you pass a rundown TGI Fridays with a "for lease" sign on the door, remember sometimes disappearance doesn't come from hate, it comes from indifference. And in the restaurant world of 2025, indifference is a crueler sentence than bankruptcy. If Pizza Hut was once the weekend dinner, Outback was the first date, and Fridays was the after-work fun, then Applebee's is the friendly neighbor, where you don't need a reservation, you don't need to dress up, you just need to stop by and feel at home. However, now, as you drive down that familiar street, perhaps the Applebee's sign is dark, and just like a neighbor who quietly moves out in the middle of the night, you suddenly realize, oh, it's been a long time since I've stopped by. Numbers don't lie. Repeat customer numbers have decreased by nearly 20% since the pandemic. 2 for $20, a deal that was once the epitome of delicious, nutritious, and affordable, is now $25, losing both its down-to-earth appeal and its value. And in an era where people compare every dollar they spend, those extra $5 are the line between stopping for dinner and ordering food at home. The bigger problem lies elsewhere. Applebee's no longer has a reason for people to remember it. It's not too bad to be hated and not interesting enough to be loved. The space hasn't changed in 15 years. The menu is so safe it's boring, and every rejuvenation campaign looks like parents trying to speak their child's slang. How can a restaurant whose highlight is a TV replaying last season's baseball game compete in the age of 15-second TikToks? Gen Z calls it basic. Millennials call it outdated. For many Americans, Applebee's didn't disappear. It just faded from memory. It's like a high school friend you still follow on Facebook, but haven't messaged in 10 years. And in the F&B industry, fading is the most brutal sentence. When customers stop speaking ill of you and simply say nothing at all, it means you have become invisible. Perhaps the most bitter pill for Applebee's to swallow is, they weren't wrong, they just weren't right anymore. They're not bad, they're just no longer necessary. And in a market where every dollar is a battle, not being necessary doesn't necessarily mean ceasing to exist. A thought-provoking question: Can Applebee's return to the neighborhood with a new look, or have we gotten used to living without them? And if the answer is it's okay, then perhaps that neighbor has passed away forever. There was a time when Starbucks wasn't just a coffee shop, it was America's second office. But then one day, that familiar paper cup no longer just held coffee, it also held controversy. Over the past 12 months, Starbucks has seen revenue plummet in many key markets, particularly in the Middle East and parts of Europe, as boycott campaigns have spread. Some markets reported declines of up to tens of % in visitor numbers, and regional partners had to cut thousands of jobs. It's not because the coffee got worse, it's not because no one wants to drink anymore, and because this brand, once a symbol of global culture, has now been caught in the eye of a political and social storm. Starbucks used to sell an experience, soft music, free Wi-Fi, and the feeling that you were living in a modern city. But now for a segment of consumers, that mermaid logo no longer represents a lifestyle, but a stance. And when coffee became a ballot expressing personal opinions, a lot of people chose not to vote anymore. The story becomes even more ironic when Starbucks still tries to maintain a politically neutral image, but social media doesn't care. In a world where hashtags can become weapons, silence is also considered a stance. And that has drawn a brand that was once outside the controversy deep into its epicenter. Imagine, 10 years ago, choosing between Starbucks and Dunkin' was just a matter of taste. Now for some people, it's a question of value, and value, once questioned, is as difficult to recreate as a cup of cappuccino. Is Starbucks paying the price for the very position they built? Becoming a global icon means becoming a global front. And as the value war erupts, no brand can stand aside. The question is, can Starbucks reformulate its recipes to retain customers? Will this once globally caffeinated brand become the next victim of an era where even a cup of latte can be controversial? If Starbucks is a cup of coffee caught in a political storm, then McDonald's is an entire meal swept away. The giant that once defined fast food, that was once the common language of America and the world, is now discovering a bitter truth. Even emperors can be deposed. For the first time in many years, McDonald's did not meet global revenue expectations. Part of the reason is the boycott wave that spread from the Middle East to Europe and then back to the US. Some markets that were once gold mines are now experiencing double-digit declines. And when the brand had to buy back the entire franchise system in Israel to control reputational risk, everyone understood. This was no longer a media incident. This was a real crisis. McDonald's once represented a very American dream: fast, cheap, and convenient. But now speed is no longer an advantage when everyone can have food delivered to their door in 15 minutes. Cheap is no longer a privilege when a Big Mac combo now costs $10. And convenient, well, sorry, Gen Z is much more convenient when they open an app to order healthy food from the couch. However, the strongest blow didn't come from competition, but from awareness. For many consumers, a burger is no longer just food. It's a stance. It's a political choice. It is a statement of personal values. Once a brand becomes associated with controversy, every Big Mac suddenly becomes a referendum by wallet. And so the fast food king had to learn a bitter lesson. Just because you're present in over 100 countries doesn't mean you're invincible. When customers no longer feel empathy, global scale is no longer a fortress. It's a target. A thought-provoking question: is McDonald's being punished because they are wrong or because they are too big to ignore? Perhaps both. In an era where consumers can vote every day with a single tap, even burger empires have to learn to bow to public opinion. And next time you bite into a Big Mac, ask yourself, are you eating a burger or making a choice? Because in today's world, the line between those two things is as thin as melted cheese inside a sandwich. If McDonald's is the trembling king on the throne, then Red Lobster is the town mayor who has been with the people his whole life, only to hang up a bankruptcy sign one day. And what many middle-class Americans find most bitter isn't the for lease sign on the door, but the childhood memories, the seafood dinner celebrating their first payday, the 10th wedding anniversary party that have now become relics. In May 2024, Red Lobster officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after several consecutive quarters of losses. They reported losses of tens of millions of USD and closed numerous branches across the United States. One of the major fatal blows was the endless shrimp campaign, intended as a customer draw, but which cost the chain up to $5 per customer. That's no longer a promotion, that's the fastest way to burn money. The problem isn't just about the numbers, it's in the position that Red Lobster once represented, affordable luxury, where the working class can feel fancy without having to sell a kidney to pay the bill. But then inflation soared, seafood prices skyrocketed, and rent and labor costs piled up. A luxurious dinner that was once affordable suddenly became a spending decision that needed careful consideration. And when people have to choose between paying their electricity bill and eating lobster, the obvious choice isn't on the menu. Red Lobster is still trying to hold on with all-you-can-eat programs, like someone trying to patch a sinking ship with duct tape. But the harsh truth is, no model can save a business when the emotional value has exceeded the customer's financial capacity. Perhaps the most painful thing is this paradox. Red Lobster didn't collapse because people stopped loving it. They collapsed because customers still loved it. They just couldn't afford it. A brand that was once a symbol of the small dream has now become a testament to harsh reality. The question is Red Lobster a victim of strategic mistakes or simply a consequence of an economy where the middle class is shrinking daily? It could be both. And when a seafood dinner, once a reward after a month of work, becomes a luxury, we have to ask ourselves, where is America headed? Chuck E. Cheese owes over 1.9 billion USD and has been in bankruptcy since 2020. Since then, they have struggled to survive in a world that has completely changed. Arcade machines, once the dream of every child, are now antiques compared to the PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, or iPad. Instead of waiting in line for their turn to play, young people now only need to open YouTube or turn on online games with friends from all over the world, without even leaving their bedrooms. Chuck E. Cheese is like an abandoned amusement park, a place where laughter has long faded, leaving only deflated balloons and forgotten cartoon characters. This brand has tried many ways to survive, from ghost kitchens selling pizza through food delivery apps to selling packaged pizza in supermarkets. But there's one truth they can't change. Their customers have grown up, and they're not coming back. More painfully, the generation of parents who once brought their children here has also changed. Instead of booking a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, they have parties at the park, rent an ice cream truck, or simply host a game live stream at home. When the joys of the real world lose out to the virtual world, models like Chuck E. Cheese are stuck in the past like a CD in the age of Spotify. The question isn't easy to answer. Did Chuck E. Cheese fail because it didn't innovate, or because the world around it changed too quickly? Perhaps both. Regardless, every time a branch closes, it's not just a brand disappearing, it's a piece of childhood being erased. And perhaps the most painful thing is realizing the child who used to scream with joy at winning a 500-point prize ticket back then has now grown up and is no longer interested in going back. Once boasting hundreds of locations across the United States, Ruby Tuesday has had to close over 600 branches since filing for bankruptcy in 2021. Its collapse was not a sudden fall, but a brutal, slow process, like a candle burning down to its last centimeter. Sales are down, customers are thinning out, and with each passing quarter, another for lease sign goes up on the door. The problem wasn't a specific mistake, it was a series of safety decisions. Ruby Tuesday doesn't update its menu when tastes change. They didn't invest in technology when users started ordering through the app. And as fast casual models, flexible, affordable, high-speed concepts like Chipotle or Panera rose to prominence, Ruby Tuesday remains stuck with its salad bar from the 1990s. As a result, the restaurant that was once a familiar stopover is now abandoned like a roadside town bypassed by the new highway. People don't hate Ruby Tuesday, they just don't have a reason to stop by anymore. And in the F&B industry, there's no longer a reason to say it's the end. Perhaps Ruby Tuesday didn't fail because of poor food sales. They collapsed because they failed to sell meaning. When every meal can be delivered to your door in 15 minutes, who needs a place special enough to celebrate something? The question for us is, did Ruby Tuesday disappear because it couldn't keep up with the world, or because the world no longer needed that kind of restaurant? Perhaps both. Regardless, every time a Ruby Tuesday closes, it's not just the end of a business, it's the end of a chapter in the story of American culture. A chapter where dinner wasn't just about getting full, but about creating lasting memories. The world is changing faster than ever, and with it, once invincible brands are falling by the wayside one by one. From fast food empires to nostalgic restaurant chains, they all face the same question: adapt or disappear. So what do you think? Is the collapse of these brands an inevitable market outcome, or a deeper sign of changing societal values? Do you remember the last time you set foot in these places? And if they disappeared tomorrow, would you miss them? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want to continue exploring the stories behind fallen empires, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. The content of this video is intended for analysis, education, and public discussion only, and does not represent any political viewpoint or personal accusation. All data and information are compiled from reliable public sources.